Some people say, chase your dreams, while others will tell you to work hard at whatever you do. But sometimes that just simply isn't enough. This is often the case in show business. Sometimes you just gotta get lucky. And the only way to do that is to find a niche and get really good at it. So good, they can't ignore you. Perfecting your niche over a long period of time creates opportunities. It creates career capital that establishes you as the expert in that field. It's what brings the opportunities to you. This was Alex Collins' experience. Moving back to Georgia after struggling in LA as an actor, Alex built his career capital through coaching and character development. Moving to Georgia about the same time as the film industry did, Alex's timing was perfect. Not only a great actor, but also a polished professional, Alex began to be recognized for what he is great at. Being prepared and doing the little things, Alex continues to be blessed with opportunities to work with some of the top talent in the industry. All the while, continuing to learn for himself and mentor others along the way. Alex is the definition of what it means to be so good they can't ignore you. Listen to how he walks the walk and talks the talk in my latest conversation with Alex Collins. Back to how you rent in LA, man. Much less own something. That's just insane.
It's really expensive. We were smart. I mean, my group of friends, we had a house that was rent controlled, and our landlord was awesome, but it was in our group for 16 years.
Nice.
So like one person would move out and someone else would take that room
keep
over,
that
right?
lease going.
Just keep the lease going. So
Yeah.
as long as one person was on the lease, the rent never went up. I did a year in Richmond, I did 3 years in Atlanta, and then went to LA.
Okay.
So it was a good few years after. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling.
All
You
right,
ready?
man. Yeah.
This is the Extraordinary Podcast, and my guest today is Alex Collins.
Oh my goodness.
How are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Chattahoochee alumni.
Go Cougars.
Once again.
Way down yonder on the Chattahoochee.
Where are we?
Where are we?
What are we doing?
We are hanging out. We're talking about life. We're talking about all the beautiful pursuits and passions that we engage in.
And all the wonderful things going on in Atlanta.
All the wonderful things going on in Atlanta. Yes, we're closing out one decade and we're starting another on a really good foot.
Yeah, for sure, man,
Yeah.
for sure. So really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me with your schedule. It's crazy busy.
It's pretty busy right now. Yeah.
And all this stuff, all the cool stuff that you're doing, man. We were already talking about how to dive into some of all these cool things without going into too far of a rabbit hole. But so let's just kind of start at the beginning, man. You're actor extraordinaire.
I'm an actor. I don't know about extraordinaire.
You've got some really cool projects coming up, but
Yep.
let's start at the beginning. How did you get started in acting?
So I think, as a kid, and we'll get into this probably, that I was born and raised in England, and there's only two things I wanted to do when I was a little kid. One was be a professional soccer player. Like a lot of kids growing up in England, that's what they want. And one was, I actually originally really liked the idea of being a stuntman. There was a TV show I grew up watching called The Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Lee Majors, right?
Yeah.
And growing up in England, we only had 4 TV channels. And there was no cable back then. And it was all American TV. So I grew up with Knight Rider, A-Team, and a lot of cartoons like G.I. Joe, Transformers. But Fall Guy was one of the coolest shows. I mean, the dude had this awesome pickup truck. He got to get paid to get in fights and jump off of buildings and, get lit on fire. And I was like, this is cool. And so I started to, rock back and forth in a chair and see if I could fall out of the chair. Or, climb up or downstairs in a violent way. And so my mom sort of channeled that energy into sports. And so for me, that was soccer. That was the sport I grew up with in England. That's all I wanted to do. And I immediately went into the craziest position, which was a goalie. Got to throw myself around all day. And
right in that stuntman wheelhouse.
Right in that stuntman wheelhouse. And so then
Why not take a fall?
And that actually really does help me today because I do a lot of physical activity in my acting roles.
Before we go down the acting hole, maybe we should talk about the soccer for a little bit because you didn't just play soccer. I mean, you have an extensive background in soccer, as much so as with acting, I would even say almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think I never achieved where I wanted to go as a soccer
But you did
player.
play in college, right?
Right, at University of Richmond. So I played at a really high-level club soccer, Olympic development programs in Georgia.
Growing up here.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of the guys that I played with, my Olympic development team, my ODP team, are 3 of the most famous Georgia soccer players of all time. Clint Mathis, who was one of the heroes of the 2002 World Cup for the U.S. national team, who also was on the same team as Josh Wolf, who's just been named a head coach for the new Austin MLS team. So he's now a head coach in the MLS, right? He was also on that same World Cup team. And then another guy named Jason Moore, who used to play for the New England Revolution and DC United. Like, we were all on the same team. So yeah, I played University of Richmond in Virginia, which was a really fun small school, Division I. And then I dabbled with playing pro as well. Really, blink of an eye. I mean, I never made a roster. I never made a team, but I was sort of like a practice squad guy for a little while. Aspirations of playing pro. I went back to England and played for a team called Ipswich for what's called a trial. Right, it's like your tryout, but in England it's an extended trial. So played for them for like a month, I think. Wow. And that was really cool. So you think about Manchester United and Liverpool and Arsenal, they're in the English Premiership, so it's one level down from that.
Nice.
So really great level. But as a goalie, there's only one of you on the team.
Right.
So if you're a defender and they're like, well, our team's got a lot of defenders, maybe you could be an attacker or a midfielder. You can kind of change your style or adapt or evolve, right? Goalie or a goalie or a goalie or a goalie. That's it.
Nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else to go. And so for me, my body was getting beat up and I wasn't making any headway. And so I stopped playing and I became really kind of bitter and angry. I became bitter and angry from my college experience because we got a new coach my sophomore year who didn't like any of the players that he was saddled with. And so most of those guys quit the team, including me. So I never finished at the University of Richmond, and I don't have regrets in life. Things happen the way they're supposed to happen, but I certainly never fulfilled my potential as a soccer player. And so what that does as an actor is it really has given me more mental fortitude because this industry is full of rejection and full of no and full of not good enough, and somebody else is better, younger, faster, sexier, whatever, right? And so I think that failure has projected me into being more versatile and to have a thicker skin in what I do as an actor.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, because we were talking about that earlier. I mean, what's so tough with the acting, you're very rarely rejected on lack of talent. You're usually rejected for some other reason a lot of times.
Yeah, there's such a multitude of variables. And what most people don't think, I mean, people only see the checkout aisle at the grocery store and People magazine and the glitz and the glamour and all that stuff. But the reality is acting as a career is very much a blue-collar tradesman type career. So there's 160,000 union actors. SAG, the Screen Actors Guild that everybody knows, SAG-AFTRA is the actors union. And of those 160,000, 97% make less than $5,000 a year from acting.
Wow.
So think about that.
Yeah.
Like whatever, there's no
what other union exists like that?
None. So what that means is even actors whose faces you recognize on TV have another job.
Wow.
They have outside income. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe they're day traders in the stock market. Maybe they're a substitute teacher. Maybe they're a coach of some kind. Maybe they have their own graphic design business or something at home. But almost every actor until you know their name and their face, they're doing something else.
Well, I find that really interesting because that seems to be the case with a lot of creatives.
I agree.
And it really is kind of a scary time. It's really exciting with social media and the fact that we have access to so much content now. But for the people that are making the content, the people that are actually creating this content, I feel like it's harder than ever to monetize that.
Well, it is because there's such a saturation of content that you don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
Right? If you're looking for a personal trainer, well, there's 7,000 personal trainers that you can find. So how do you, if you're the personal trainer, how do you cut through the noise? How do you stand out? How do you create a niche? How do you create a brand that people are going to latch onto? It's tough. It requires a lot of work. But to get to the positive side of the point that you mentioned is that there are more opportunities. There is more visibility. And if you can endure, if you can survive, then ultimately you can thrive.
And if you can find a way to differentiate, then you can stand out.
Definitely.
You have the opportunity. It's a double-edged sword because now more than ever, you don't have to be a consummate professional to put something out there. But at the same time, I feel like the consummate professionals kind of get drowned out a little bit. So it's kind of tricky. And what I think is really neat about you is you have been able to create a very unique niche, particularly in Atlanta, that has given you some more opportunities. And let's talk about what that niche is. Or do you even want to Say it the right way.
People who know me as an actor or have seen my work, they
probably already know really well.
they would probably know that like half of the work I do is a British characters, right? So being born and raised in England and then moving to the United States at a developmental age right before high school, I had to kind of assimilate and kind of fit in with the crowd quickly. And so that meant I consciously made the decision to hide my English accent. And it took about a year. And for the rest of my high school career, obviously, I was able to just sound like a regular American, like I do right now. And so this is the life that I live. Like, I'm an American. I carry an American passport. But I also carry an English passport. And I go back to an English accent. And as an actor, that differentiates me in the sense that whether it's a proper white-collar, sort of educated character, or if it's a bit more like, like a Guy Ritchie film, like Snatch, or Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, or anything like that, it's a bit more blue collar. So I've done both on camera as an actor. So I think that's what you mean.
That's incredible. Oh, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks. And there's not a lot of actors in Atlanta who are native British. So sometimes TV shows don't need a native. They want someone who has a good accent. But some producers only want natives. And so in both of those situations, I'm always going to be thought of first.
Because they will consider you as a native.
Oh, yeah, they'll always consider me as a native. Yeah, no question. Because I have enough demo reel footage and clips from stuff that I've done. And in the audition room that I can switch back and forth. And they generally, oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's a great talent to have.
I'm really fortunate there. And there's just not a lot of competition here in Atlanta. I mean, all of the other native British guys, we all know each other because we all end up at the same audition. We're all auditioning for the same. And all of the American guys who do really good British accents, we know all of them as well.
Yeah, because there's like certain tiers.
There's certain tiers. Yeah, like
that's
definitely
great.
Want natives. Okay, we'll take Americans who sound like they could be natives. Okay, we'll take Americans with pretty good accents. And then it's like, we don't really care.
Yeah.
Like, that's the bottom of the barrel. We don't really care.
Was the AMC show, was that your first opportunity to utilize the British accent in a major role like that? Or
you're the Turn Washington Spies. Yeah, when I played a really mean, bastardly, sadistic. Actually, I think the breakdown for the character was sadistic, torturing soldier gets his comeuppance or something, like, because I end up getting whooped pretty hard with my own pistol. Right, I get pistol whipped with my own gun. I was really grateful to book that show because it's a wonderful casting director, Erica Arvold, and she's cast beautiful projects, like a lot of period, like Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis. She cast that. And,
oh, no kidding.
And it allowed me, it was the first time I went back to Richmond, Virginia since I left the city. Like, I went to college there, and then I spent a little time there, and it was the first time I'd gone back in over a decade. And so for me, it was nice to see how the city had evolved. That was shot in a suburb of Richmond, like on this farmland, this massive old farm, and it was really cool.
They did an amazing job with the recreation there. That was top-notch work, for sure.
Yeah, that whole farmland. So, like I said, that's where they shot Lincoln as well. So they kind of have Revolutionary War all the way up through Civil War sets. All on this property. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's really cool.
I think that was the first. I mean, I'd done English accents and other stuff. That was the first. Well, The Accountant was actually before that. So that was probably the highest profile thing I'd done that was British.
Yeah, I guess I didn't actually see The Accountant
until
it came on video. So I got after the fact. I didn't actually see it in the theaters. Was there a moment where you kind of had this aha moment in time where you kind of, not necessarily an aha moment, but where you had felt like you had kind of made it or reached a certain level of success?
No, I've never feel that way because this industry is so up and down and so filled with rejection. So I'm constantly working to improve. I've always believed that I had skills. I always believed that I was a good actor and a strong actor, and I felt like I had really good training. And I really believe that when I lived in LA, I never saw any success in LA. I'm really grateful for the industry that we have in Georgia, here in Atlanta, right? Or all of Georgia, really. But there was a time I was in a wonderful studio studying for years in Hollywood, and I'd look around the class. And there's probably a dozen of us in this class, Monday night class. My Monday nighters will know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 or 4 people who are famous in that class, right? People really strong working actors who their name is the first name on a TV show, that kind of thing. Right. Really, people who've been
headliners.
People who've been nominated for Emmys. Like, really good people. And here I am in that class. And I'm not there by accident. I deserve to be there. I work just as hard. I'm holding my own. And in some cases, the nicest piece of feedback I've ever gotten was from a friend of mine who was a working actor in that class. And he says, I always hate being assigned the same material as you in class because it means I have to go before you. Because if you go first, you set the bar. And I'm like, hey, thanks. I genuinely appreciate that.
What a great compliment.
And it's a really nice compliment. Could we trade lives? I'd rather have your career and be intimidated of you in class than have the class.
Financial success,
right? But I was very grateful and humbled by that he chose to say that. And this guy's a good friend of mine. But that, even though I was going through a really awful period in Los Angeles, I didn't have an agent. I was rarely, if ever, auditioning, and I was not booking any work. It's just such a competitive minefield there. It's saturated.
Yeah.
But so that gave me the confidence to survive a little longer, to endure a little longer, and to feel good about myself and know that I was in the right place. And then, several years later, I moved back here, and opportunities started presenting themselves. I'm really grateful for the market we have here.
What was the biggest takeaway coming back to Atlanta from LA?
Before I got in my car, having made the decision to move back, I felt like a failure, right? Here you are a decade before waving goodbye to everybody. Hi, I'm moving to Hollywood. See you when I'm famous, right? That's what some people think. I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted to work.
Yeah, I just wanted
to work, man. And you kind of feel like a failure with your tail between your legs. And then you realize you're not a failure because you had the courage to pack the car up in the first place, to move that way. You had the fortitude to survive almost a decade when a lot of people just fall by the wayside. Like as the seasons change and the leaves fall off the trees, so do the people fall away in Los Angeles, right?
Sure.
There's a new crop of people every day. And the only reason I stayed as long as I did was the love that I had for my friends. I have a wonderful friend group there, a lot of whom are from Atlanta, actually.
Right.
And I would have moved earlier back to Georgia and started taking advantage of the market that was happening here. You don't have to go to New York now. You don't have to go to Hollywood. You can come to Atlanta. So that high school actor who's graduating from their tiny little high school in Iowa with dreams and stars in their eyes, they don't have to go to Hollywood. They can come to Georgia and save money because it's cheaper, and they can have a life outside of acting, which is really important to be healthy.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit because your career has kind of taken that same path along with the same time frame with the city of Atlanta, where you've seen a lot of success and a lot of work, quite frankly, as the city has grown as well. So tell me, was any of that planned? Did you know the industry was coming here? Obviously you came back here because Georgia was home for you.
Right.
But it was luckily also now becoming the home for a lot of other things, a lot of really cool things going on that were going on in LA.
So when I lived in LA, I still kept in touch with my agents here. And
you had an agent in Georgia?
I had an agent in Georgia, my very first agent I ever had. Very first agent I ever signed with way back when. Still with them today. Love them. They're a great team.
You want to give them a plug?
Great family. People Store. They're awesome. Yeah. And they're one of the oldest. There's three. Now there's dozens of agencies in town, but People Store is one of like the three oldest agents. They've been around for a long time. One of the originals, the OGs. So even when I was living in LA, I kept in passive contact with them. And that was sort of like when Facebook was emerging as well. So I was able to keep in touch with actor peers that were here. How's it going? And then I saw in 2008, the tax subsidies had passed. And then 2009, 2010 especially, the market started to grow. And it was a perfect confluence of circumstances. Atlanta Airport is the busiest airport in the world. The tax subsidies happened. And then because the economy tanked in 2008, what that did is it allowed a lot of large-scale industrial buildings, warehouses, and commercial buildings to be empty. And so studios were able to take advantage of that and convert an old factory into a studio.
Gosh, and how many times have they done that in this town? It's
dozens and dozens and dozens.
Every time I turn around, there's another one.
To give you an idea of the size and the scope, Tyler Perry, everybody knows Tyler Perry, right?
He was one of the first guys.
He was one of the original guys. Yeah.
OG.
He's also definitely an OG. And so I give Tyler Perry all the respect. I've worked with him before. I get on a show called Have and Have Nots, which was before he ever, that was at his original studio.
And for those who don't know, that's like a soap opera type thing where you were playing a cop.
I was. I was a very nice cop who sort of got into an altercation with one of the one of the main family members. But so he had his original studio, but he had a grander vision. And his grander vision was he actually purchased Fort McPherson, which was an old military base. And if you can imagine in your mind's eye how big a military base is.
It's huge.
It's massive.
And it's just barely outside of Atlanta.
It's just barely outside.
It's right on the MARTA line.
Oh, it's great. It's just close to the airport. Again, so it's all about those logistics and the infrastructure things coming together at the right time. And so he just opened that this year, 2019. And to give you a sense of the size, his studio today is larger than the 4 largest studios in Hollywood combined. All 4 of them combined. So Georgia we're not just an afterthought now. We are a place for creation, production, post-production. We can fill any position in front of the camera or behind the camera. And we're just going to continue to grow and do that. And so, Atlanta is a great solution, which is why we are, depending on which articles you read or economic forecast you read, somewhere between $9 billion and $11 billion of economic impact, 92,000 employees in the entertainment industry, and just growing.
And what's exciting to me is what you brought up there is it's not just the production and the actors and stuff. What I'm the most excited about is just seeing a lot of that post-production work staying in the state, because it seems like in the past a lot of the shooting, a lot of the nuts and bolts have been done here, but then a lot of that post-production work has gone back to LA, and I love the idea of some of that stuff staying in town.
Yeah, I mean, being really honest, that's still a very small percentage that's staying here because the infrastructure for post-production, especially if there's heavy VFX, that's in Hollywood still, right? It's changing. There are post-production houses here now, and that's increasing. And I think, if you're looking at things in terms of generations or phases, the next phase would be to get more post-production stuff here.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That same phase, pre-production. And by what I mean by that is like writers' rooms and actually content creation where there's writers writing TV shows here, because the stuff is still being written in Hollywood.
Right.
And that's we've got talented enough people. There's some really talented folks in Georgia.
I love the thought of that.
Yeah.
I've actually got a buddy who's doing who does a lot of the scouting, a lot of the pre-production stuff.
Oh, location scouting.
A lot of the location stuff. And he's got just the best job. He loves what he does, and it's so much fun. And his Instagram is really cool, too, because he does all these cool black and whites of what are going to ultimately be future movie locations.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty neat to see.
Love it.
Yeah. What was one of the toughest lessons or one of the toughest losses that you had to experience that made an impact on you?
Well, I think it's circling back to knowing that I was never going to be a successful professional soccer player, right? That's really hard on your ego when you're an 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-old kid. And because you are a kid at that age. Right?
And it's what you identify as. So so much of your identity is tied up in that.
No question. I'd spent my whole life being groomed to be a professional soccer player. And here's the difference. I had the physical skills. I was good enough to be a professional goalkeeper, but I wasn't mentally tough enough. So when I had, as an athlete, there are 2 types of coaches. There's a coach who puts his arm around you and quietly whispers things, and then there's a coach who yells at you. And some athletes take the yeller and they like the yeller. Some folks need the coach, like the paternal influence. Mm-hmm. And I needed the paternal influence, but I got the yeller, and that ruined me. It broke me. And it jaded me to the game. I didn't play soccer. Once I stopped playing, I didn't play for several years. Wow. Again, I mean, I couldn't play. It annoyed me. And then finally I found a home with my guys in L.A., and I played with a big group of guys who I love, and we played really competitive. There was a team. I had one team, but then this other team I played with was Hollywood United, which is all actors and ex-pros. There were 7 World Cup veterans on that team.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And so I kind of found the joy again.
That's great.
But that failure or that lack of hitting a goal, it fuels me as an actor, right? It gives me this strength to go, look, you're going to get a yeller. Someone's going to yell at you.
It's going to happen.
You're going to hear no. And as an actor, you hear no 95, 96, 97 times out of 100, you're going to hear no. And it's not about you. It's not about your skills, passion. It's not about your look. It's not about your talent. It's just you weren't right for it. Someone else was more right for it. And if that gets into you and that gets inside your DNA, that's going to break you. And so I think had I not been broken down in soccer, as an actor, I might not be acting anymore.
Well, because I mean that's the toughest thing for me. I constantly think about that because I handle rejection really not too well, and so to have to go through some of that, I would just.
Yeah, it's tough, and there's been times I want to quit, and that little voice in your head. I do well as an actor now, and I have done for a few years. But even now, gosh, where's my next job coming?
Right.
Gosh, what am I doing next? Yeah.
But what I like about what you do is you take that constant doubt, that little nagging thing, and you use it to your advantage. And one of the ways that you do that is through that constantly evolving, constantly improving, constantly growing and learning. You want to talk to me about how you're one of my favorite people from a perpetual learning standpoint because you're constantly trying to grow and improve as an actor and as an athlete and everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, by the way. I don't care what industry you're in or what you do for a job or a career, you're never done learning. There is no destination, right? You're constantly improving.
There's no finish line necessarily.
There is no finish line, right? It's like it's a constant evolution of who you are as a person. And if you're ever getting comfortable with where you are, you're not standing in one place. You're actually regressing.
Right.
You're actually moving backwards.
Still, you're going backwards. Right?
Exactly.
Actually,
because someone else is coming up behind you. Someone is younger. Someone is learning more things than you are. Someone is hungrier than you are, more motivated. So even if you're, an accountant who sits in a cube every day, cool, you're a really awesome accountant, but there are new things, new methods, new things to learn, whether that's in software or hardware or industry things or new laws that come into play for accounting and tax code and auditing and all that stuff. You're never done in anything.
No.
And if you are done, if you get to a place where you feel like I'm done, I don't know. That's
game over, man.
Game over. Yeah. It's time to retire and go live on the beach if you can do that.
That's where bad things start to happen. I think that's where things start to go wrong.
Yeah.
When you get to anytime you get to a point where you think, oh, well, I know it all. Oh, I have all the answers. That's a dangerous place to live.
It is. And I think the prevalence of social media is a good thing and a bad thing. It exposes us to so much more. So there are so many more opportunities for learning and development, for sure. which is good. But then we play the comparison game, which is really bad, right? Like,
tough.
That actor's so much busier than I am. What am I doing?
And Ryan Holiday talks about Ryan Holiday's one of the best authors I've ever read in my entire life. Dude's a freaking genius. And he still has that comparison things with some of these amazing books that he's written. But they're not like bestsellers. They don't do like super huge over the top numbers like what some fiction authors would do. And it's like, and even he goes through some of that struggle. So I thought it interesting.
Generally, almost all the time, comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Absolutely.
It puts you in a bad headspace. But comparison, for comparison's sake, can actually be used as a positive. And I use the analogy with my acting students all the time, is imagine a ladder. We're all climbing a ladder in our industry. And somebody's like, well, they're looking up the ladder and they're going, God, I wish I was there. But what they can't see is the person that they're looking at is also looking up going, gosh, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
So it's a perpetual thing. It never ends. And as long as you don't compare and then judge yourself, well, why am I not there? What you do is you look and you aspire.
How can I
get there? And then you create an action plan.
Yeah.
Right? What is that person doing for their career that has allowed them to take 3 or 4 climbs up the ladder? And how long did that take them? Was it a year? Was it 5 years? Right? I have students who are like in their early 20s and they're like, well, me. Like, dude, I have T-shirts older than you are.
You barely gotten your feet wet.
You've barely gotten your feet wet, and you've done so much. Stop comparing yourself to me. I've been doing it 20 years. Right? Compare yourself to yourself.
We underappreciate what we can accomplish over time, and we overappreciate what we can accomplish in a moment, I feel like.
Wow, that's good. I like that.
Not only are you constantly learning and constantly progressing for yourself, but you've also are helping others along the way, and that's what appealed to me about you for this interview, not just as an actor, but as an acting coach and what you're doing, not only for just Atlanta, but for the industry. Just like talk about your coaching program and how that came to be and where it's at now.
So it sort of began in LA when I wasn't working at all. and I was in this class with really talented actors. I was always really good at script analysis. You could give me a script for 5 minutes, and I would have all the answers to the script. Right? Doesn't mean I'd memorize the script, right? But I had all the answers to what was happening, what happened before, what's going to happen, looking at all the little secrets, the Easter eggs in that script. And so at that point, other actors, they could see that I was able to do this. And they would, hey, how do you think, I have this audition tomorrow. Can you help me with this? Hey, I've got this, blah, blah, blah. So I was never a teacher in LA, but I was helping out my friends. And it sort of grew organically out of that. And when I moved back to Atlanta, so in LA for the last couple of years, I was coaching actors, right? Not in a formal classroom setting. But when I moved back to Atlanta, so I'm now in my 7th year of teaching in a classroom situation, and also one-on-one individual audition coaching, and then consultation and what the sort of career development. Here's where you are. Here's where you want to go. Here's how you need to kind of lay out your game plan. You're the CEO of your own brand, your own business.
Not just showing them the acting aspect, but showing them the real life aspect of like how to navigate your way through this.
Yeah, and
that's so beneficial.
Actors their entire existence is about bringing real life to a human being that's not them, right? So actors are really good at making creative choices and emotional choices, but they're not always the best business people. And so, hey...
Yeah, because typically those two things don't really go together.
Right, left brain, right brain don't always go together, but you are your own CEO, your own chief marketing officer, right?
Chief marketing officer being key.
Absolutely.
Man,
so you are your own brand, and you have to make sure you're putting out there what you want. And younger actors, and by younger, I don't mean in age, younger meaning newer, just less experience in the game, they could be really well trained. They could have come from a really good theater school, and so they're great actors. And so what their first and initial instinct is, I need to show everybody what I can do, the range of my acting.
Right.
And that's actually counterintuitive to having success early in your career. Everyone in the regular world has heard of typecasting. Right? Oh, you're typecast as this, and it's generally considered a negative in the regular world. But in acting, it's not, right? In acting, it's a good thing.
It's your niche.
It's your niche.
Right.
So if all of the casting directors think of you as the cop or the soldier, when they have a movie that comes to town and they need a cop, your brain, your head, your face, your headshot is going to pop into their brain first, and you're going to get a call. And that's great.
And nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Laugh all the way to the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So when you've played all the cop roles and when you've played all the military roles, which they never end, they're always those. But when you've made a really good career or niche of doing that, then you'll get the opportunity to maybe branch out and you'll be a coach or a young dad or like the girlfriend's best friend, the shoulder that she leans on. And so you kind of get to widen your focus. But too many people start their acting career with a wide focus. That's just throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
Not a lot of it's going to stick, right?
Yeah.
So if you use a visual analogy, thinking about light, different sources of light, it's much better to be a laser beam. It's narrow and deep.
Focused.
Narrow and deep versus like a headlight, which is wide and shallow.
That's brilliant.
Don't be wide and shallow. Be narrow and deep, right? That particular analogy I got from a guy named Glenn Morshower, who's a really well-known actor, and he's been teaching for 40 years. He's been acting for 40 years.
That makes perfect sense.
And you know who this guy is. He was 7 years on the TV show 24.
Oh,
He's
nice.
in all the Transformers movies. He's played more military and cop roles than anyone in the history of Hollywood. Yeah. I mean,
so
the guy's
he found his niche too. Clearly,
he found his niche.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, the guy's been in everything. He's awesome. He's a really good dude.
What's one thing that you do that most other people don't do that has contributed to your success?
Gosh, I don't think there's any secret sauce or special formula. I don't necessarily do more than anyone else, or I don't do anything in such a unique way. I think over so many years of making mistakes and learning what works for me and what doesn't work for me, everyone has a toolkit or a tool belt. Everyone wears a tool belt, right? And over time, you acquire more tools. Some tools you use very rarely. Some tools you use every day, and so those tools need to be sharpened. You're never. It circles back to us. You're never finished learning, and so even coaches need coaches.
Yep.
Right. Mentors need mentors, and so if you continue to look up the ladder and find those mentors, that's going to allow you to stay energized, fueled, make sure your well remains full, And that way you can continue to do what you do. For me, I get so much enjoyment from being in the classroom setting with my students and seeing the light bulb moments that they have that I may have had that light bulb moment 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? But it helps me refocus on that and go, gosh, that's a great, that's really good. Oh, I like that. I forgot about that. You know, it might take a newer actor 2 hours to break down one scene. It might take me 20 minutes. Right. But it took me 20 years to get to 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
And I remember that, and I remember what the struggle was like. Oh, it's so hard to learn lines, or it's so hard to do script analysis, or it's hard for me to build a character and do character development. Oh, just keep plugging away, right? Keep plugging away. It's like, how do you, what's that analogy? It's how do you eat
a 1,000-pound gorilla?
Yeah, one bite at a time. That's what it is. Yeah,
something to that effect.
Something like that, right?
We're butchering it, but we got the point. Yeah. So in that same vein, is there something odd, weird, or different about you compared to most other people?
No, nothing odd or weird. I think the English accents and just the ability to do accents in general does give me a little bit of extra oomph or an asterisk where sometimes, I'll give you an example. Sometimes an audition will come out and let's say it's some sort of like futuristic movie. For the sake of argument, let's say it's a Marvel movie or something like that, right? And they need a scientist to talk about the aliens invading. Right. Well, the breakdown that comes out that says, oh, scientist, white guy, 35 to 45, very intelligent about nanobots, whatever. Right, I'm making this up as I go along, right? Well, it doesn't say that the guy's British. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare that audition. I'm going to make that character English and American. So I'm going to go in and do the audition British, even though it's not written that way. Because if they're seeing 50 guys for the role, they're seeing at least 45 Americans, probably 49 Americans, right?
I'll be honest, yeah.
So if I'm number 37 to audition, they're already bored. Yeah. They've heard it 36 times already. Yeah, they're starting to glaze over. Even if the actors are really good, it's the same material over and over again. And then and then I come in and I go something very sort of English and interesting. Automatically, I sound 50 IQ points smarter. That's not to take away from Americans, but everyone. Think about it. Think about it in your own life. When someone is reporting the news or there's some knowledge piece and then someone with an accent comes in, you're like, oh, that guy knows what he's talking about.
He clearly knows what's going on.
Oh, she's definitely smarter. She's an authority on this subject, right?
Isn't that so funny?
Isn't that weird, right?
That's so hilarious.
And this is understanding character development, because conversely, if someone is super Southern and they're trying to be a scientist in the future,
not going to work.
Y'all, I need to talk to you about these nanobots. Like, you lose 50 IQ points.
Right, yeah.
Right? So there is a completely right time to use that, like good old boy Southern sheriff.
Right.
But it's probably not when you're talking about nanobots.
Not when you're talking about nanobots.
Right. So knowing that gives me an edge. And then I'll also do it if they're okay, the guy's not British. Sure, no problem. I've got an American for you. I'll do the same thing. But body language and posture is different between British and American. So I may carry myself a little bit different. Sort of, everybody's heard of the stiff upper lip, very sort of, very proud British. And so I could be an American scientist, but I might be more casual in how I stand or move or lean or converse with the audience, right? So something like that. You just again, that script analysis and character development that you learn over 20 years. Then you have to have the confidence to go, well, God, the guy's not written British, but I'm going to make that choice. I'm going to do that. So you got to know the rules before you bend the rules a little bit.
Isn't that so important?
And
all that comes with experience, man.
It does. And that comes from 97 no's out of every 100 opportunities, exactly. Right?
Outside of acting and outside of the professional world, how are you getting your knowledge? What are you reading, or how are you taking in knowledge? Are you reading? Are you doing audiobooks? What's your favorite way to ingest information and to improve?
Oh, that's a good one. I definitely try and read maybe 20 to 25 books a year.
Nice.
And then at the end of the year, or maybe the end of every 2 years, what I do is I just put a list on Facebook and say, hey, I have all these books. I have all these books that I'm done reading. Who wants them? And
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I was like, who wants them? Come over.
While we're here, I might need to.
There you go. And what I do is I say
swap out.
Yeah, sometimes there's a swap out. I'll trade people for books, or I just like to kind of like pay it forward and be like, I don't like the book is just sitting on my shelf. I've read it. I'm not. It's like when you take phone video at a concert. I'm never going to go back and watch the phone video, so I should just enjoy the concert. Right. The same thing with a book. I've read the book. There are some books I go back and reference all the time, but 99% of the books, once you've read it, you've read it.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's a manual or a guide or something, you're not going to go back. So every year, every 2 years, I'll put those up online and be like, hey,
I try to do this something similar. Just as I'm finishing them off, I think about the content of the book and who that would most relate to, or somebody who could benefit the most from that, and I try to connect the book with the person.
That's really cool.
I love that idea.
That's what I love about Atlanta. I don't know, if they have this up by you, but in different parts of the in-town neighborhoods, they have the little public library, the little free libraries. So it's like a birdhouse, right? It looks like a birdhouse, and you just take a book.
Yeah, it's just
you want, you just take a book.
Yard.
It's just somebody's front yard. It's all free. Just take a book.
There's some of those in Athens. There's not so many up by. Well, we're blessed with I've got a library basically within walking distance, so we're very blessed in that
really
regard.
Cool.
But out in Athens, they do have similar.
So just think about that for a second. A library. People don't really know what those are anymore. Yeah. Like people don't use libraries.
Well, and what's so crazy is there's so many good assets there.
Yeah, it's not just books.
It's not just books.
So many resources.
There's so many resources that I've it's been kind of one of my things over this past year to get into libraries and really, quite frankly, talking it up. And one of the pieces to my personal development plan is actually getting a library card and like having a library card that you actually use and putting books on hold and getting the whole thing going, like the whole list.
That's
and what's really helped me do is it's actually helped me to develop a list of things that
that's really cool. I don't spend a lot of time in the car, so I'm not a podcaster guy, and I don't like to listen to podcasts when I'm working out. I like to listen to music.
Yeah.
So I don't get the volume of podcasts that other people do, but I do like podcasts, so I'll throw them on when I'm in the kitchen cooking or things like that.
It's a great format to get information.
And I love the Rich Roll podcast. That's really good. Lewis Howe's School of Greatness is a really good podcast. Yeah. And I listen to some acting industry podcasts. There's Off Camera with Sam Jones. He's got a really good TV show that goes with that. So he's awesome.
He's an informal mentor for me. The whole way that I've stolen a lot of
very conversational and cool.
And he's a really, really neat guy. I love his interview format, his style of the black and white. I mean, other than the fact that he's just interviewing actors. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his for sure. So let me ask you, audiobooks to regular books, what's your ratio?
100% regular books.
You don't do any audiobooks at all? So
I've never touched a Kindle. I like to smell a book. I like to feel the pages.
Me too.
And I love the economic footprint of a Kindle or something like that, an audiobook or a digital book. But I'm 100% hard copy. I like to read.
I can't do digital books at all.
Yeah.
What I will do is I'll do the audiobooks. I'll listen to one. Then if I find one that really relates or that I really connect with, then I'll go get the regular book off of that. But I'm like you. I still do more reading than I do audio.
Yeah. And again, I mean, part of that is I'm not a road warrior. I'm not in the car that much, and I know people who are. The radio gets boring.
Well, you're fortunate. You're down here in East Atlanta, right down here where all the studios are and everything. Yeah. So you're right here in the thick of things.
I'm close.
You don't have to worry about. You could probably ride your bike half the time.
I could. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm a mile and a half from Drama Inc., which is the studio I teach at.
No kidding.
That's sort of like
totally ride your bike.
Drama Inc. to my grocery store. That's about it, right?
That's awesome, man.
That's about it. I don't have to drive too much. Yeah.
With Atlanta being such a commuter town, it's really great to see the in-town communities really thriving and growing, and there's so much new development going on down here. I love the idea of the belt line and keeping people out of their cars and down here close.
Yeah, we need more bike infrastructure because we are not a bike-friendly city like Portland or Denver or
no, but that belt line has certainly helped a lot, though.
It's
certainly
helping,
been the first kind of stepping stone towards seeing some of that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm walking distance here to the Beltline, which is nice. It's the next phase, so it's unfinished. It's not paved yet, but you could ride a fat tire bike on it, or you can run on it.
I was gonna say I like to. I mean, me, I like to trail run it anyway.
Yeah, you'd like it.
I'd try to stay off the pass when I can. With the crazy schedule that you lead, you consider yourself night owl or early bird?
I'm very much a night owl. I don't. I'm on a TV show right now, and we had a 5:30 a.m. call time on Wednesday, and that's pretty brutal. Because that means I'm up at 4.
I was gonna say that's even that's even a little bit more than early bird. That's
that's nighttime.
That's almost night owl still. Right?
So, but look, one of the best things about being an actor, and here's where it's very ego stroking, right? So I show up at 5:30. First thing I do is I walk into my trailer that's already heated. So my wardrobe is already hung up, pressed, ready for me to wear. And the very first thing, a PA comes to you and says, "What would you like for breakfast?" And you know what film sets have.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I'm gonna have an egg white omelet, and I'm gonna have sausage and like grated cheese, pepper. Like you say, whatever you want for your breakfast. Hash brown. Can I have 7 grapes and 4 pieces of pineapple? And 5 minutes later, your breakfast is there
with the 7 grapes.
Somebody brings you your breakfast. So like. A lot of actors gripe about the long hours. And I'm like, whoa. First of all, we don't work frequently, but when you work, you get paid really well.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have the easiest job on the set. That PA was there an hour before you, and she'll be there an hour after you're gone, and she's outside and it's raining. You're in your cozy, warm trailer, and when you step out, somebody will bring an umbrella and hold it over you to walk you to where you need to go.
Right.
And then when you get to set, you have a chair just for you.
Everybody else is standing the whole time.
Right. You know, it's so
many little things
so there's
like
a
that.
weird ego stroking thing, but I think this is one of the things I learned when I was newer in my career was to always be thankful for that. Work doesn't come frequently, and I try and learn everybody's name, and the first person who I try and learn their name is the PA, because they're at the bottom of the totem pole on the crew. They're working really long hours for really little money. And if you can just be, thank you. Tell me your name. Hi, I'm Alex. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And if you can remember that goes a long way. And that's a good rule for life in general, right?
Absolutely.
Like especially because we're on cell phones so much, nothing irks me more than if you're in line at Starbucks or you're in line at the grocery store and that person gets up to the checkout counter and they just sort of throw their credit card at the person.
Yeah, you can't even put your phone down long enough to
get
talk
off the
to
phone,
person.
man.
Yeah.
Like, just look at the person in the eye and say thank you.
I'm a huge proponent of memorizing people's names.
Yeah.
And there's all these little different tricks that I've been working on. Jim Quick is another guy I'm really fascinated by. He's a really neat guy. But he tells us a lot about memory techniques and ways to remember people's names and word associations and all that. And it creates so much value when you can remember a person's name and they remember you when you can do that, and you really make an imprint on somebody.
And the lesson in life, especially true in the acting community, is that is the first step to creating a relationship. Yeah. And the more relationships you have, the more work opportunities you have, the more networking opportunities. Yeah. The show I'm on right now, the director is someone I've worked with before on another show 3 years ago. But we've stayed in contact via social media. I'm a fan of his work. So that makes me feel more comfortable and relaxed when I get there. It's not a new person to learn. Yeah. Right? One of the other women in the camera department, the last TV show I worked on, she was one of the PAs on that TV show. And now she's moved up. She's not the bottom of the totem pole anymore. Now she's in a camera department, and then she'll be moving up in camera. So who knows? 2 years from now, I might be on another TV show, and she might be running the camera department.
Yeah, you never know who's going to be the next director. Who's going to be the next? Yeah,
the golden rule, right? Just be nice. Just be nice.
Something to be said. Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, in your industry, you do see people that just treat folks horribly. I mean, sometimes it can be. That ego stroking stuff can go to people's heads pretty quick.
It can, but I have to say, in every single experience I've had, I've never had a jerk. I've never had a bad experience. I've never worked with someone who is just really what you read about in People magazine or see on TMZ.
That's great.
And I did a movie with Tom Cruise a couple years ago. Yeah. And I'm only in one scene.
Right.
But Tom Cruise is the lead. He's in every scene. This movie filmed for like 8 months. He's also a producer, so he's got the other mental things to think about. The night that I was in the scene with him, our call time wasn't until 11 p.m.
Wow.
Right? So we were shooting all night. He was already working for 12 to 14 hours before we ever showed up, and then we shot all night. So he's approaching 24 hours of being awake. And what happens is a lot on film and TV, when you're shooting the scenes, you'll shoot the stars' scenes first, get all their close-ups first, right? And then sometimes the star will disappear and go in their trailer and learn the next scene. But Tom Cruise, he stayed for all of what's called coverage. So when it was my close-up, I'm actually acting with Tom Cruise on the other side of the camera.
Cool.
The other folks in the scene are acting with Tom Cruise. And when we wrapped for the night, he shook everybody's hand. He said, thank you. Wow. He said, I appreciate you making this project what it is. And look, we're only there for a little bit of time. We're not big players in this movie. But he genuinely said thank you and was kind about it. And
that's really cool.
That's why Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise.
Right.
Take out any of his stuff that like you might not align with, but that's why he is a global phenomenon and has been for 30 years. That's why the Mission Impossibles do as well as they do. There's, in my opinion, there's amazing actors like Meryl Streep or Denzel or whoever, but there's only two true global megastars. One is Tom Cruise and one is Dwayne Johnson. Think about that.
Yeah.
Right? And they've both forged an identity, a brand around who they are. Because people often, Tom Cruise is the same in every single movie. He is the same in every single movie. And that's what puts butts in seats.
Right.
Because you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson's the same way. He's this larger-than-life character, whether he's playing an action hero or it's like Jumanji or jumping out. Yeah, like he's had a game plan for his life for 20 years.
He fascinates me.
He's
I love that.
And he dominates social media and he's changed
his social media is ridiculous.
He's now. I mean, The Rock is a brand. You know, Under Armour has an entire
that bull logo.
The bull logo, like his entire no bull shoes, like his entire thing is genius. And it brings in millions. And now he's got his tequila line.
But it's all based kind of on that kindness concept, kind of like what you were just talking about with Tom Cruise. I mean, I mean, if you look at his social media, if you look at his content, you look what he's putting out there. I mean, it's kindness. It's that goodness, you know, that's really encouraging to hear, because that's something you get a lot of, you know, preconceived misconceptions out there with the industry for sure.
Now, not everyone you're going to work with is warm and fuzzy. Not everyone's going to be super conversational. But the leads of those shows, whether it's a film or a TV show, they have a lot of pressure. You don't know what scene. Maybe they have a really big emotional scene after yours that they're trying to stay focused for. You know, maybe it's a heartbreaking scene. Or maybe they just got a call from their agent that they're due to do 12 interviews after lunch, and so now they're thinking about the interviews and how they're going to look on camera or what questions are going to happen, or maybe there's some controversy. You know, I think as an actor at any level, but especially when in the lower rungs of that ladder, is you show up and the three most important words you can remember: be of service. Just be of service to the story, be of service to remembering people's names and trying to just be a positive light when you're on a set. So people are like, gosh, I enjoyed working with that person today. Be of service to the lead actor and not get in their headspace or like mess with them because you don't know what pressures they're dealing with. And be of service to yourself, right? The best way to be of service to yourself is to be a professional. Be courteous, be quiet, be where you're supposed to be prepared, don't disappear. No. There's so many like comical stories on a set where a PA is like, sorry, I can't find Alex. Give me a couple minutes. I'll find him, and because I've just wandered off to get a snack, right? But so you don't want to be that guy, right? And if you do go to get a snack, you tell the PA first. Say, hey, I'm going to get a snack.
Yes, I know where you are.
So they know where you are.
Being responsible, doing the right thing, and being a professional.
Being a professional, yeah.
Do you have any morning or evening routines that you're pretty religious about, that you are pretty consistent with?
Yeah, no matter what's happening, make my bed. First thing I do, make my bed every single day, because a day can often go south. Bad things can happen in your day. But if you make your bed, that's one thing on your to-do list that you can check off. Cool, did it. So there's three things I do every single day without fail. Make my bed right off the bat. I make coffee. I don't press a button to make coffee. I make coffee by hand every day. I do a Japanese hand drip. It takes 5 minutes to make 1 cup of coffee. And in the morning, people are like, I need my coffee before I can make my coffee. Right? No. And it's not because I need the caffeine. It's I need that 5 minutes of just intention. Just behavioral intention every single day.
I love it.
And then the third thing I do is I go into my office and I look at my to-do list, because I make a to-do list every week. Well, I make a lot of to-do lists, actually. I have dry erase boards and Post-it notes, and so I'll make a weekly to-do list, and then I'll make a today to-do list off of that, right? Like what are the heavily pressing action items that I need to do?
A couple things you can really knock out today.
Yeah, absolutely. So So those three things, making my bed, making my coffee, making my to-do list. So those are my morning routines. And then this year, I would say probably 75% of the time, the 5 minutes before I go to bed, I'll use an app, just like a calming app, just to kind of like focus.
Which one are you using?
I use two different ones. Calm is the big one.
Okay.
I don't use that one as much as I use Insight Timer.
Insight Timer.
Insight Timer,
I'm not familiar with that
they
one.
both of those apps have free and paid subscriptions.
Okay.
The reason I like Insight Timer is because depending on how tired I am, I can choose 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, or 5 minute pieces, and it could be a guided meditation, it could be just calming music, or like bells, or whatever it is. So some of them are 2 or 3 minute just intentions, like be grateful for the day, think of 3 things that you are proud of for the day, or set your intention for the next day, that kind of thing. And it just helps my brain slow down a little bit. We're so connected, and I'm really, really guilty. Oh, you asked books. Here's a really good book: How to Break Up with Your Cell Phone.
Ooh, nice.
How to Break Up with Your Cell Phone. It's a super tiny, quick read book, and it's split into 2 parts. And the first part talks all about the science of why our brains get addicted and why the dopamine receptors in our brain function the same way with our phones as if we were doing cocaine or heroin, right? Mm-hmm. And the second half is a 30-day breakup. Nice. And it's not designed to get you to throw your phone into a river, but it's, do I need that app? Do I need these notifications? Yeah. Notice how anytime you download an app, it automatically comes with the notifications. Yep. So you have to manually dig around to turn it off.
Those notifications are key.
It's crazy. The colors that an app has, the sounds that an app has, it's designed a lot like the way slot machines are designed in a casino.
Like the casinos,
bling, 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 bling. What? And here's the trigger. And anybody with a cell phone has experienced this. You ever reach for your cell phone going, oh, I just got to vibrate, I just got a text, and then there's no text? Yeah. It's because your brain has gone a certain amount of time going, oh, I need that drug. And so you reach because it's a Pavlovian response. You're conditioned to it.
Or when the phone will be in a different room and my leg will start vibrating as if
my phone's not even there.
My phone's not even there.
In the kitchen.
Why is my leg vibrating?
Right.
Like it's crazy. But it's true.
It's so true. Weird. And I think the really telling thing for me was I read a couple of articles. Almost 100%. There are no tech CEOs that allow their kids to have a tablet or a smartphone.
How about that?
TV, they're allowed, but they're not allowed those devices because they know it rewires and remaps your brain.
Yeah, it really does.
So if Bill Gates isn't going to give his kid a phone, why should I be on the phone so much? Something to that. Yeah.
Definitely food for thought, for sure. Well, and having kids, I mean, it's such a balancing act, and it's such a management thing that you have to just constantly think about and consider and to have a game plan. Like you said, being prepared and going into this stuff, like knowing how you're going to deal with that with your kids, I think proactively is really, really important. Because if you're not proactive, then it just happens. It just occurs. The addiction just creates itself, just like any other one. Any other books? We kind of jumped away from our books real quick. Are there any other books that are like your favorite? Any other books that made a lasting impact on you? Any favorites? Go-tos?
Gosh, I mean, there's a lot. So when I buy books, I tend to buy like 3 at a time, or 3 types of it. So I'll buy a fiction, I'll buy a biography or an autobiography, and then I'll buy some sort of like development or self-help. And I try and rotate, because if you read 3 biographies in a row, it gets a little similar. 3 self-helps in a row. So, I mean, last night I just started a book about Robin Williams and his life. Awesome. And that's like 450 pages, and I'm excited. So it's a biography about him. I'm really excited to read that. Dead Poets Society is the reason I wanted to become an actor, really. Like, I mean, Fall Guy when I was a little kid, but Dead Poets Society came out, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I want to do this.
Because that maybe had a pretty big impact on me as well.
Well, I think I had just... It's interesting because the movie takes place in America, but it has a very British feel, right? Private school and uniforms. Yeah. And I didn't go to fancy private school in England, but it had an English feel. So it made me feel like England. And I related a lot to sort of Ethan Hawke's character, Todd, as well as Sean Patrick Flannery's character. Is that the right guy? Yeah, Sean Patrick Flannery's character who played Neil. right? Who wants to rebel against his father.
Right.
And I mean, that's a pretty universal theme, right?
Mm-hmm.
A kid wants to, you reach adolescence and you want to branch out and do your own thing. And here's
the fact that it was acting too, wasn't it? Acting
it was. He wanted to be an actor, and he was doing Midsummer Night's Dream and Shakespeare. And for me, I was like, oh, okay, not Neil Patrick Flannery, Robert Sean Leonard. I knew it was one of the three names. Yeah. Robert Sean Leonard, a wonderful actor. And so that for me, and Mr. Keating, Robin Williams' character, his "Oh Captain, My Captain," his influence that he had on the kids, was such a positive one, but it was seen so negatively by the establishment. And so for me, that just sort of hit at the right time and in the right place in my brain and my heart. And I was like, yeah, this is going to do it. And
we were both of that right age for that could be very influential.
Absolutely. And I think Robin Williams especially, people who are funny and come up as being funny. Funny is a defense mechanism based on trauma and masking vulnerability. So it could be Jim Carrey. It could be, Andy Kaufman. It could be Robin Williams, Chris Farley, Chris Rock. All of those people who are really, really funny people. It's generally out of some sort of trauma, whether that's divorce or the death of a parent, or in Jim Carrey's case, homelessness, right? Growing up. I mean, I think Jim Carrey dropped out of high school in 9th grade. Do you think about that? That's really tough. And so, anyway, so bringing it back full circle, that movie really, really had a positive influence. So I'm reading a book about him. I just finished reading Dream Big, Never Quit by this guy, Mark Megna, that I went to college with, who went. This was a guy who was told he was never good enough to play sports, never good enough to be a football player, he was too fat to play football as a little kid, and he changed his mindset, and he would get up and go to the track in the winter in Massachusetts with snow, right? And he would go to the track and he would walk. And then he got to a place where he would run. And then he would run a lot. And then he was able to play football in high school. And he aspired to more. He dreamed big and never quit. And this guy ultimately ended up on the same New England Patriots team as Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady was a fourth-string practice quarterback when Mark was on the team. And Mark ultimately had a pretty successful professional football career, and now he's pivoted into the next phase of his life as a really successful fitness professional and gym owner, helping the next generation of athletes.
Yeah, now he's kind of like a fitness guru, right?
Yeah, I mean he's been on the cover of a lot of fitness magazines just for his physique, but now he's a subject matter expert in terms of what people will come to him for training and guidance.
Yeah, because you were saying, too, he trained some NFL guys and stuff.
Yeah, he trained some NFL guys, some college folks, some high school folks seeking to improve so they can compete at the college level,
so
that kind of thing.
Ready for that.
Yeah, and he's down in Miami, and he has a series of gyms down there. So I just finished reading that book, which is a biography of him.
Oh, that one is a biography.
Yeah, it's his.
Nice.
Cool.
That's his actual story.
It's his story.
Not just the process or whatever.
Yeah, and they just came out with a documentary about him as well. He and a production crew did a documentary. Cool. A kid from Fall River, which is Fall River, Massachusetts, is where he's from. And we actually have a similar story as well in terms of like how we grew up. Like I didn't grow up affluent. Well,
and you went to college with him at University of Richmond, right?
Yeah. We lived on the same hall our freshman year, but we knew each other all through college. As athletes, you kind of cross paths in the training room, getting taped up or getting treatment or like
getting treatments.
My favorite thing. This is a completely random pivot and has nothing to do with Mark or myself, but the toughest athlete I ever knew, her name was Carol Nur. Dude, I haven't talked to Carol since college. But the reason Carol was so tough, she was the field hockey goalie, and she played lacrosse as well. And she had bad knees, bad ankles, bad hips, and she would have to do ice baths every day after practice. And so you see football players, like the quarterback is dipping his elbow into the ice bath, and he's whining about how the ice bath is so cold. As me, if I had to dip my knee in there, like, it's so cold, I can't handle it. Here's Carol, this beast athlete, right? Brick wall solid. And she would just get into the ice tub, up to her neck. And she'd be in there for 20, 25, but she'd come out purple.
Yeah.
I never heard her complain once. Never heard her complain.
What was her sport?
She was the field hockey goalie, and she was a midfielder on the. I think she was a midfielder on the lacrosse team.
Okay,
but she's the biggest,
tough as nails.
She's the tough as nails. She's the toughest woman I've ever met in my life.
That's cool.
Just a beast of an athlete. And I just now that memory just triggered because I was thinking of the training room, and I remember those days.
Well, and we should also talk. Not only do you have a background in sports with the soccer, but the way that our paths kind of crossed, or kind of one of the ways that we reconnected, was through the sport of triathlon.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got into that whole realm.
gosh, after soccer, I was looking for something to do. And so I had done now they have Spartan races and all those sort of things. And I did a really early version of an adventure race right after I stopped playing soccer. I was like, I'm mad at soccer. I'm not going to play soccer, but I want to do something.
Right.
So I did a few of those, and then I got bored. And then I really didn't do much for a while. And then my buddy and I both decided to do Hermosa Beach Triathlon, just a sprint try. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun.
So out in California, it's when you first got the bug a little bit.
It was when I was living in California. And then didn't do it anymore for a while, like several years. And at that point, I'd moved back to Atlanta. And my best friend has a twin brother. And he and his twin brother were looking for something cool to do. And they're like, we're going to do an Ironman. I was like, well, that's crazy.
Did you know what it was at the time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I knew what it was.
What they were getting into.
Yeah. I was like, that's crazy. Can I do it with you guys? And they're like, sure. And so I roped a girlfriend of mine, Tracy, into it. She's one of my best friends. And so the four of us trained for the Ironman. Tracy and I were living in Atlanta in different parts of the city. And then Mike and Pat were both living in different places. Mike was in L.A. And I think Pat was in Atlanta. He might have been in San Francisco. I can't remember where he was living at that point. So we essentially I went basically from the couch to a full Ironman in 6 months.
Holy
cow. Thankfully, ignorance is bliss, because I didn't know how bad it was going to hurt. I didn't know. Like, this was a brutal day. And so we did Vineman in Northern California in wine country, Napa and Sonoma.
Cool. Beautiful.
And it was 106 degrees. It was the hottest day on record they'd ever had. Yeah. So what started out as a wonderful day just descended into a pain cave real quick. So that remains the only full Iron distance I've done. But I do a lot of.
You made it though.
But I made it. I finished.
Wow.
Yeah, I crossed that finish line.
Man.
But I do a lot of like 70.3, so half Ironman, which are fun because you get to a base level of fitness and then you dial it up. Now look, I'm never gonna win. I'm never gonna be on a podium. I'm mostly a back of the pack athlete. I'm a big guy. I'm a slow guy.
Me too.
But it's fun. Weirdly enough, I don't like swimming. I don't like running. But you put swimming, biking, and running together, and they're kind of fun.
Yeah. I don't like biking.
That's weird.
That's
you're a trail guy. But there's a social camaraderie in training.
Yeah, for sure.
During training season, 4 or 5 of us will get up and we'll go to the Silver Comet Trail and we'll knock out 40, 60, 80 miles. On longer training, we'll go to Alabama and back, so 120 miles, nice. 123-ish, I think is what it is. And in Georgia, you have to get up early enough to beat the heat.
Right.
I mean, you're going to get the heat anyway, but if you start at 6 a.m., right when the sun comes up, you're done at noon before the brutal heat of the day.
Now, let me ask you this. Being that you're an in-town guy, biking is certainly a lot more of a difficult proposition for you down here. How do you get your bike training in? Not to get into a wormhole or anything, but
so
I'm interested for myself.
I refuse to bike in the city.
I don't blame you.
It's not safe.
So
I know
dangerous.
people who get hit every week, if not in Atlanta somewhere. So I do a lot of my biking on a trainer, a fixed trainer here in my house.
At the house. Cool.
And I'll use software that calculates my watts and where I'm. And you can ride on a Tour de France.
What
course.
do you use? Wahoo? What do you use?
So I use a Wahoo Kicker trainer with Zwift. So nice. You can ride different courses, like London or Paris or whatever. So I do those, and then what I do. When I do go out, so it'll either be Silver Comet Trail because that's protected from no cars.
Right.
Or there's a couple of heavily frequented places, one about an hour north of here and one about 40 minutes south of here. And so if we're in a group, there's sort of safety in numbers. Cars can see you, trucks can see you, that kind of thing. And they're pretty heavily cycled routes, so if they're residents or locals, they know it.
They're used to seeing riders.
They're used to seeing riders.
That's exactly how I go about it. You go where they're used to seeing people ride. They know to look for you a little bit.
But you couldn't pay me an unlimited. I wouldn't take any sum of money to ride in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. That's why I was very curious because it's just not smart to do it. It's just there's no upside.
There isn't. The roads are terrible in Atlanta, and people are distracted driving. Everybody's on their cell phone.
Well, they just don't know. Like you said, with Seattle and Portland, some of those other places, people are like kind of trained to look for riders. And this being such a commuter town, they just don't look. They're just not aware, and that's what leads to so many accidents.
No kidding. It's terrible.
But, any plans for this year for triathlon? You got anything in the works? Anything you're working towards?
2020, I'm going to do the Augusta 70.3 half Ironman again. I did it in 2017. I was slated to do it in 2019 this year, but I took a little bit of an injury doing a stunt on a TV show. So I sort of had to shut it down for a few months, jacked up my back, yeah. And so I'm healing now, and I'm rebuilding, getting a base layer of fitness, and so I'm going to do that.
You're looking pretty thick, dude. You look like you've been working pretty good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I might. Gosh, I don't really know if I want to put this out there. I might
put it out there. I can hold it to you.
I might do another full Ironman.
Yes. When?
And I was well.
Come on, let's go.
I was thinking of doing one in 2020, but now that I've signed up for Augusta, I won't. But I think Coeur d'Alene in Idaho is coming back for a full. Huh. They used to host a full for several years, and then it went away. But it's coming back in 2021.
Is it mountainous?
It's pretty hilly.
I was going to say, that's probably some serious
It's pretty
riding.
brutal. Whew. So I think if I can trick friends into doing it, then maybe a group of us will do it.
And that is exactly how it works.
Peer pressure in endurance sports is like, come on, man, it's only 50K. Oh, it's only a 50-miler. Come on, we can chat while we're training
together. Yeah.
And there's that a positive social peer pressure, right?
Absolutely.
It's weird because getting all the way back to the beginning of our chat, you asked if I was a night owl or a morning person, and I'm absolutely a night owl. But when you train for triathlon, you get up early to beat the heat.
You have to.
I'm probably like one of the few people who gets up much earlier on Saturdays and Sundays than regular people, right? They get up Monday to Friday for work.
They're looking forward to sleeping in on Saturday.
Right.
Nope, you got to set the 5 a.m. alarm.
That's it. Yeah, I'm on the bike by 6 a.m.
Yeah, because those Saturdays and Sundays got to be those long days for sure. Well, and how you balance the Well, let me ask you how, because I know you've had to make some sacrifices in the sport because of the work schedule for acting and stuff. So how do you do that balancing act?
You just know that as an actor, you might get the phone call at the 11th hour. And so you have to know that, gosh, even if I'm trained up and I'm ready to do this race and the race is next week, I got a TV show. TV show takes precedence, right?
Yeah.
That happened to me in 2016. I'd actually signed up for another full Ironman. I was going to do Chattanooga in September.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember you saying
that. And I was on a TV show in Savannah for 3 months, a really cool show called Underground about the Underground Railroad. And yeah, I couldn't do the full, which I was sort of grateful for because I wasn't really training as much as I should have been.
Well, yeah, and that acting schedule with the crazy hours and stuff, it makes it really tough to put in the training that you need to.
It is real hard.
Because the one thing that I'll say about training for an Ironman is like you have to have the rest. You have to have the recovery. Yeah. And if you're doing a 24-hour shoot or something, I mean, you're doing these crazy hours with the work schedule.
It's hard.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine.
A half Ironman, you can plug in workouts wherever you need to. A full Ironman is brutal.
No,
it has to be. That has to be your primary focus in life.
It's a part-time job. There's no doubt about it. That's how I always. I mean, if you can consider it and think about it like it is a job and it's a part-time job, then I think you can get it all in. But
it is because a full Ironman requires somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week of training, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I was trying to shoot for closer between 20 and 25, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
for me,
I shouldn't joke about this, but there's a lot of joking in the triathlon community. You can either be married or you can be an Ironman.
Yeah, it's hard to do both. I'll be the first to tell you.
It is hard to do both. You have to have a really supportive partner who picks up the slack for you when you're in heavy training, or you both have to enjoy the sport. In which case, there's empathy there because, all right, well, you've got the kids for this 4 hours while I'm going to get my run in, and then I'll take the kids while you get your bike in. Yeah. Or you both train, and then you kind of dump the kids off with a nanny or
that's
friends.
why I have to do my training at 5 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that all the time. So, it's just part of it.
Every triathlete has a pain cave in their own house, right? It's either
it's a requirement.
The basement or the garage or whatever it is, but that's where you get your hard work done because at least you're under the same roof as the kids. Maybe the kids are sleeping before school, and you get it done.
Or you can yell at them from the trainer a lot easier than when you're gone and not there.
Bring Daddy another bottle from the fridge.
On, let's go. Get ready.
I need that endurance drink.
Going back to the acting a little bit, I'm just kind of curious. What's some of the worst advice that you hear in that industry, or things that kind of frustrate you that you hear going on?
Well, I don't think it's specific just to acting. I think it's a lot of industries. Okay. But when someone if they're dispensing advice and they use the words always or never, you should always do this.
Nice.
Or you should never do this. That's very rarely true. There might be rules and exceptions to the rule. There might be a majority, but there's very rarely an always situation or a never situation, because everything has an asterisk. Right. Always do this, except, oh, you should never do that unless, right? So there's always going to be that. And I think with the prevalence of social media, with the prevalence of the internet, and now anybody can be an armchair quarterback. So you have to consider your source. Right. So there's a lot of big Facebook groups out there for acting. I'm a moderator in this one group that's 60,000 members. And this group of moderators, we try and moderate it so quote unquote unqualified people are not dispensing advice. So if someone is asking for opinions on something, then people can give their opinion, sure. Right. But look, let's not say that is gospel. That's not fact, okay? And so if you are offering your expert opinion, you need to qualify it. Oh, I'm an actor with 20 years of experience, or I'm a talent agent, or I'm a producer.
And this is what I found.
And this is what I found, right? Because then it's their personal anecdotal thing, or they're coming from the point of view of what an agent would traditionally see. And with social media, everybody's an expert, right? Like everybody's got an opinion that thinks that that's how it's supposed to be. And it's always based on usually a very, well, not always, again, always. It's typically based on a very finite set of circumstances. Yeah. And I like the idea of always being open. There's another book that I'm about to start reading after I finish the one I'm on. It's called The Third Door. And it's like always finding that, like there's always another way. The third door concept is you got the front door where everybody's standing in line to get in. You got the back door where all the VIPs are coming in. But there's always a third door. There's always a way that you can get in to get what you want or to get what you're after, what you're chasing. So here's an interesting question I like to throw to all my guests that come out. And I have a thought that I might know what yours is, but I'm real curious. What's your favorite item under $100 that you cannot live without? Favorite item under $100 that I cannot that you use on the daily? Yeah, I mean, it would be a coffee gadget. I was going to say your coffee press, right? That was something. I mean, it's something. So it would be just gourmet coffee. You know, I have all the gadgets that I need. So it would be, So what coffee what's your brand? What do you get digging on since it's such a big thing for you? So I think for the last year or so, my favorite coffee in Atlanta is a company called East Pole. East Pole Coffee, yeah. So they're a local micro roaster based in Buckhead, sort of like the industrial part of Buckhead. That's where they have their roasting facility and their retail shop. I didn't know Buckhead had an industrial section. Yeah, it's right under 85. Yeah, right. It's developing really nicely now. But they wholesale, so their coffee is available in a lot of different coffee shops. Oh, and there's a coffee shop here in my part of town called Full Commission Coffee. Or it's actually not called Full Commission Coffee. It's called Full Commission. But I go there for the coffee, and I do all of my coaching there, right? Oh, so cool. It's like my office away from home. Yeah. But it's a great environment. The baristas are really nice. Everyone there is lovely, and you see the same sort of set of regulars there all the time. But the East Pole Coffee, they actually have a few different coffee companies that they serve, but East Pole is awesome. It's an Atlanta-based company. I like to support local when I can. Yeah, absolutely. You know? I worked. You might not have known this, but I worked in coffee for about 15 years, off and on, in different I worked for an LA-based roaster for 11 years. Huh. So while I was acting, I also had a sales job. Well, I was going to ask you what your other gigs were out in LA when you were because obviously acting didn't always pay the bills. What else you were doing out there? Gosh, I've done everything, man. I've done everything from catering to working in bars. I worked at if you can believe this, I worked at the Cheesecake Factory. Nice. Yeah, I had a mohawk when I worked at the Cheesecake Factory, and I got fired when I didn't really get fired. They just took me off the schedule, and then I never went back. Because of the mohawk? Well, once I got the mohawk, the GM sent me home that day because all haircuts have to be be Oh. And they have a very strict set of hair. The mohawk wasn't for a role or anything, was it? No, I just wanted to do it, yeah. Young and stupid. That's okay. Mine was green, so it's all good. There you go. So, yeah, I did those sorts of things. I worked at the door at a really cool restaurant bar in L.A. called the Village Idiot, which is still one of my favorite places I would ever hang out at. And I still have a lot of friends from there that worked there. And I remember in particular in 2010, the World Cup was in South Africa. And so the games would kick off at 11 a.m. L.A. time. But the restaurant, the Village Idiot, would open at 6 a.m. for breakfast. Okay. And by 6:01, it was full. Wow. But because I was friends with the owners, I would show up at 5:30 and go in before it opened and save the 2 best booths that would seat 12 people for the best angle to the TV. And we would fill it, 15 of our friends, and we'd spend a ton of money on food and booze and all that stuff before 11 a.m., before the games ever started. And I remember they packed so many people in there that the U.S. was playing Algeria in an elimination round, in the second round, and middle of the game, really stressful, really heightened part of the game, and the L.A. Fire Department walked in and shut the place down. Like,
is it too many people?
Too many people. Like, too many people. And the owner, one of the owners, Charlie, he just got up on the bar and he yelled, he's like, okay, everybody's got to get out of here. Don't worry about your bar tabs. Just go. And so I don't know how much money they lost because they lost all of their open checks, all of the food that was already being made, right? They were shut down the rest of the day. They were shut down the next day, and they got a fine from the city. So, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars.
At least. Yeah.
But that place is such a neighborhood. It's on Melrose Avenue, right in the heart of the shopping district in Melrose. And it's
clearly
just
it's got a cult following. Yeah. I love places like that.
Yeah.
They're just, especially when they're kind of down and dingy and just kind of not so nice, you know. But when they're like that, and there's so many places I love to go in. The other L.A., New Orleans. That are like that, just like this little chicken shack on the corner, that's...
Yeah, this was certainly not a dive bar by any stretch. It was a really nice gastropub.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously anything in L.A. in that area is going to be
But
nicer.
it had that down-home feel, that dark corners, and it was great. I mean, I did my birthday parties there a couple of years. It's always a great spot.
Well, my brother-in-law worked at a restaurant similar to that. He was a bartender.
Yeah.
Same kind of vibe where they were seeing a lot of cool people come through.
Where did he work?
Oh, if you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
Pressure.
I'll find out and I'll tell you.
Yeah, no.
It was it was more like a diner type of style, but it was really in that same vein where like there was a lot of not a lot of A-listers coming there, but just a lot of industry people would hang out. It was just a good place for people to hang. So I'm real curious. One of the big projects that you've got about to come out, or I guess it maybe already came out, Jewel.
Richard Jewell
comes out on Friday?
It comes out on Friday the 13th. Yeah, so I actually have the Atlanta premiere tomorrow.
Awesome.
So I actually
congratulations
thank
on
you.
that.
Yeah, I just talked to Paul Walterhauser, who plays Richard Jewell. I talked to him on Saturday. They're all coming out. All like Clint Eastwood, everybody's coming out. So that'll be really fun. That was a great experience. It was a great experience just on set. I mean, Clint Eastwood is a legend. He's been working for seven decades.
Like, what was that like?
Amazing.
Man?
I mean, he's really humble and quiet, but really funny. I mean, he's 89 years old, so he looks like your grandpa, but he still looks like, Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And he sounds like that, too.
But mentally, though, like he's still...
Oh, he's sharp as a tack. I mean, he makes a movie a year.
Yeah.
The last 3 movies he's made in Georgia. And The Mule, 317 to Paris.
I didn't know those were both filmed in Georgia.
And then Richard Jewell, yeah. And Paul Walterhauser is a guy who's been, he's been kicking around Hollywood. He's been a journeyman actor for the last 10 years. The guy is going to blow up. He's on... There's some really good stuff. He was on Cobra Kai last year, which I've also had the pleasure of doing.
I wanted to talk about that too. But
there's a show that Mindy Kaling has on Netflix, and he's been on that.
Nice.
He's been bouncing around. He's done a lot of stuff, but this is his first. He was in I, Tonya. Like, he was one of the henchmen in I, Tonya, right, that take down Nancy Kerrigan.
Nope.
And he was great in that, and he got a lot of critical praise for that.
I didn't see that
Yeah,
one.
really, really good movie. But this is his first true lead.
Right.
And you've got Oscar winner Clint Eastwood, Oscar winner Sam Rockwell, Oscar winner Kathy Bates. You've got Olivia Wilde. You got John Hamm. You got really big people in this.
A lot of big names.
It's a lot of pressure on him. And he's the most humble, gregarious, lovely man. And he deserves all the success. He's already getting a ton of critical success for this. They're talking about...
Well, just the previews themselves, lend it to...
He looks so much like Richard Jewell, and it's a really timely story now in terms of, media being able to skewer people without really any vetting or out any facts sometimes. Right. And this was one of the first cases where the media got a hold of a guy and vilified him.
Yeah.
And the guy died really young. His life was protracted because of this.
It
was surreal for me because all of my scenes are shot in Centennial Olympic Park with Richard Jewell. And
we were both in Atlanta at that time. We were both down there at the Olympics. I wasn't actually down there that night that it went off, but my sister was.
Yeah, I wasn't there that night either, but I was there during the Olympics, and I went down to Centennial Park, and I stood in the spot where the bomb went off.
Yeah, right. We both did. Yeah, it was crazy.
And so it was really surreal for me to then relive that and look and see the '90s fashion and like look around. I'm like, man, I remember this. It was weird. I imagine it's what our parents' generation thought about, like when Kennedy was where they were, or like even we were younger, but when the Challenger disaster happened, and like there are seminal moments in your life where you remember certain things, and because it was such an Atlanta moment, Atlanta's our introduction to the world,
right?
And that bad thing happened, right? Yeah. But what a wonderful experience and amazing actors, top to bottom, and it was really, really fun. And Clint Eastwood is just a peach. He really is. There's no shouting on his set. There's no yelling. It's very calm. It's
nice.
And he sort of said, "So you guys ready? Let's do one. Let's try one." Right? There's no action or
right.
Just
no
like
real high intensity stuff.
You guys start when you're ready.
And obviously, I have nothing to do with any of this stuff and know nothing about it. But that seems to me like how I would perceive it to be in a situation like that.
Yeah. Like, and what's amazing about Clint Eastwood, I mean, just besides his library of work that he's done, is that typically when you film a movie, it takes 9 to 12 months to edit, market, and release a movie. Sometimes longer.
To fruition,
sometimes longer. This movie finished shooting August 15th.
Whoa.
It's out December 13th. So less than 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's really 2 months when the screenings start happening, right? They send it to critics, or they do a screening for critics, and then they'll do a premiere. So it's really 2.5 months. So 10 weeks from the time they finish to the time it's ready. Wow. It's unheard of. And he's done. He comes in under budget, on time, every film. Because when you're that much of a pro, and it's, again, getting back to relationships, all the crew guys that he's worked, the men and women that he worked with, some like his first AD, Bernie, he's worked 30 years, 40 years, right? So you speak a shorthand. You have a language almost of familiarity.
Well, it's almost like family. At that point, you've got these established practices, these best practices in place to really take advantage of, and certainly makes it much more efficient and a much more enjoyable process for people like you who are just kind of coming into it.
Yeah.
So you've got to work with him. You've got to work with Tom Cruise. You've got to work with a lot of really big names over the years. Ben Affleck with The Accountant.
Right.
Of all those experiences, do you have one that kind of stands out as a memorable experience for you, or something that really made a lasting impact on you, or a story that you'd want to share, or who was one of your favorite people to work with or spend some time with in that regard?
I mean, I'm just grateful to work, right? Working is always a victory. Right. What happens after the fact? Like
you
when
enjoy the relationship with the paycheck as much as you do.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, everybody needs to pay bills and put a roof over their head. I enjoy all of that. Every opportunity to work is a good one because they happen so infrequently for actors. You don't know when your next job is going to come. But I think my first big high profile job was The Accountant. Yeah. Right. So Gavin O'Connor is an Oscar-nominated director. He directed Miracle, the ice hockey movie about 1980, Warrior, the MMA movie, and I mean Oscar winners. Obviously, Ben Affleck was in it. J.K. Simmons was in it. Anna Kendrick, who she's hilarious in person. I only worked with her at the table read. I sat next to her at the table read, and it was like kids in school. It was like I was getting in trouble because she kept on telling little jokes, and she swears like a sailor. And I could see the writer and the director from the other side of the table looking at us. I'm like,
the evil eye.
You're Anna Kendrick. You're not going to get in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. Look, they're looking.
I'm going to get fired.
Right. And then, but really, my entire relationship on that movie was with John Bernthal. John Bernthal played Shane on The Walking Dead. He was the Punisher in the Netflix show The Punisher. His star has ascended a lot. Mm-hmm. But I spent a month with John. Nice. Because we had stunt rehearsals that we had to do for what happens in the car, the fighting that takes place in the car. So we had multiple stunt rehearsals.
Awesome scene, by the way.
Thank you.
That was really cool.
Yeah. Whoop. That was a painful one. Because I got my head smashed against a mahogany steering wheel. I got punched a bunch. There was actually originally there were slaps in the scene that got written out after our first stunt rehearsal because it didn't logistically.
After you got smacked around.
Well,
after your jaw was got
I mean, it was throbbing and red after that first stunt rehearsal. But I learned a few things from him. And the things that I carry with me that I learned from him is just being grateful to be there. He was grateful to be there. He was grateful to be on the movie. And this is a guy, somebody who's already famous from Walking Dead, like the biggest show in the world at that point. And he's like, I'm just grateful to be here. The fact that he still gets nervous, and you can channel nervous into a positive way as well, but he told me about his screen test for The Wolf of Wall Street, and there's Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio right there, and he's got to go perform in front of them. And so that was nerve-wracking for him, to continue to be a student. Like in his trailer, we hung out in his trailer, and he had a Russian play, like a play in Russian. After high school, he went to Russia to do theater, right? And so he had this Russian play that he was reading just to read, and another script that he was reading, and another book he was reading. So just to continue to self-educate and grow.
Yeah, being that consummate learner. I love that.
That was really important. And then, again, to be of service. So think about this. This next part of the story is what I take away more than anything, and I try and apply it in everything I do. Here's me. I'm nobody. Like, I'm nobody famous. Nobody knows who I am. And during our first rehearsal, he says, "What do you think? How can we make this better? How can we make our scene better?" And then he says, "How can I make you shine? What can I do for you?"
That's incredible.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're an A-lister. You're John Bernthal. You're Shane. You're the Punisher. Like, you're Fury with Brad Pitt. You're the guy in Wolf of Wall Street. I'm just here to make you look good. And he's telling me, how can I help you? And so that was,
I love that.
It was a huge lesson for me and a huge light bulb for me. And it gets back to say hi to the PA. Learn the PA's name. Like, always be giving, and it's going to come back to you. Always be giving.
Well, you wonder, gosh, that had to contribute to his success, just like it did with Tom Cruise and The Rock.
Yeah, I think so.
That same kind of thing.
I think so. And I think just as I got to know John a little bit better, that's just who he is. He's a family guy. He's a dog owner and a dog lover. He's got kids. He lives on basically like a farm up in Santa Barbara, kind of Ojai area, north of L.A., so he doesn't do the L.A. rat race thing.
Right.
And it's just family. So family is about peers and collaborations. And
because if it wasn't sincere, it wouldn't hold up, right? Like it
right.
wouldn't. If it wasn't like who he was truly to his core, then it wouldn't hold up over time. Like it wouldn't.
You would start to see cracks in the armor if that were the case. But no, he's as humble as anybody, and I learned a lot just from time with him.
Cool, man. That sounds like a really good mentor to have. You keep a relationship with him? Are y'all still in contact?
A little bit on social media.
I imagine he's probably too busy with all he's got going on.
He's pretty busy. We touch base from time to time. Like, I'll shoot him a note and he'll shoot a quick note back or whatever. But no, I mean, it's weird. Sometimes you'll work with people and like I have his cell phone number. So like during the course of the show, the movie, we would text like, "Hey, do you want to get together? You want to do this?"
Right.
But like, now I'm not gonna like text him out of the blue today. Right. That would be weird.
There's a standard of operating procedure there, like professionalism and all that.
Professionalism,
that you have to
absolutely.
Keep in mind.
So same with Paul Walter Hauser from like Richard Jewell. I have his cell phone number, but I'm not gonna hit him up and be like, "Hey man, happy Tuesday, what's happening?" Like, yeah, dude's too busy.
Right.
Dude's too busy.
That's cool.
And I talk about busy. Like the day he wrapped Richard Jewell, he flew to London to work with Emma Stone in the 101 Dalmatians prequel. They're doing a movie called Cruella. Oh, and cool. Emma Stone is playing Cruella de Vil, and he plays her henchman.
Nice.
Right. It's set in like the mod era of the 70s in London.
Cool.
And so like he's just been crushing it. So now this is going to come out
to the next project.
This is going to come out and do critical wonders for his career. That's going to come out and do financial numbers for his career. Like it's a Disney movie. It's going to be globally massive, right? And so he's going to stratospheric rise. The next 12 to 18 months for this guy are just going to explode.
Killing it. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next 12 to 18 months for you.
Yeah.
And for the industry. I'm real curious. I would like to get two perspectives. So obviously I want to know what you got planned, what you got coming up. Yeah. I know there's a lot of stuff that you don't get to talk about because of legal obligations, and you got to be on the hush-hush. But anything that you can share with us that's exciting for you coming up, acting or otherwise. And then I'm real curious, after we talk about that, what your thoughts are on the industry and the future of the business, particularly with Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, yeah, obviously Richard Jewell debuts Friday the 13th. That's going to be really great. And
this podcast will be a little bit after the fact.
Yeah.
We're going to try to rush this one through
No.
production to keep it in time, the timelines tight. But yeah, so just by the time this hits the airwaves,
it'll already be out.
Will be out.
Yeah, which there's been. You never want to jinx anything, but there's been a lot of really good pre-press about it. Potential Academy Award for the script, Paul Walter Hauser's performance, things like that. So who knows what's going to happen, but hopefully positive.
It looks
things.
like it's going to really blow up.
Yeah, I hope so. And then I have two TV projects so far that are going to be debuting in 2020. Neither of which I can say anything about. I can say that one of them is going to be the most unique TV show anyone's ever seen. It's going to be really, really different. It's genre-bending and groundbreaking.
Nice.
It's going to be really cool. And I have the good fortune of I'm in the show a lot. I don't say a lot. I don't have to do a lot. But I'm part of the story. And it's really going to be exciting to see that when that hits. And then, as we speak, I'm working on another show. Which is really...
Another TV show?
Yeah, another TV show, which will come out in May 2020. I'm only in one episode of this TV show, the first episode of the show, cool. and it kicks off. It's based on someone real. I can't really say.
Right.
I play a real person, and the whole show surrounds a particular person. And
so there may be a potential for a reoccurrence.
No, it's not because it follows a timeline.
Oh, I
and
see.
so it each episode is farther into the future.
Right. So you're gone
from this person. So I'm
right.
gone after the first one. But the person I play has an impactful person in the main character's life.
Nice.
And the person I have to be so careful, right?
Right.
The person playing this the lead in this. Is one of the most talented people I've ever been in their orbit. I mean, they're just so talented. And I'm really grateful. And I finish up that show this week. Last week, I got to work and multiple days and just see the magic happen. Mm-hmm. And I get to wrap that up.
I know we were kind of balancing our schedule based on how that was going to wrap
how that
up.
was going to work out this week. So, I'm slated to finish that up. And it's fun because I get to finish with a fight scene. And
nice.
It's kind of cool.
Fun.
I get my butt kicked in a lot of things. So, I don't know if I get my butt kicked in this. We haven't worked out the fight yet. We'll see what happens.
You're always on the losing end of the
I got a face people want to punch, I guess. I don't know.
You got a face worth punching.
Yeah, but to get to the industry in general and sort of Georgia. I mean, Georgia's in a great place.
Yeah, again, I'm really excited about the future
for
here.
all the things we've talked about. We have the infrastructure here. We have the sound stages here. We have the crew and the cast level of talent here. The busiest airport in the world. All the topographical advantages of Georgia. So Georgia will continue to be industry leading. We will continue to be the number 1 or number 2 destination in the world for filming. Which is amazing. The tax subsidies keep us strong, and the people working to keep those things are doing a great job. So I'm really excited for all of that. The really interesting thing on a macro level, not just for Georgia, but is technology now. Deep fake technology.
You said deep fake?
Deep fake technology, right?
Explain that to folks.
So deep fake is where CGI is used to potentially put a famous person in a place that they may not be or say things that they may not have said. Right now, it's being used mostly with politicians. Right? There's fake Obama or fake Trump or fake Nancy Pelosi, these deep fakes. And the CGI can make them say whatever you want.
And it looks
and it looks so real. It's really dangerous and it's really difficult. But the implication for film and TV is that they can now bring dead celebrities back. So there is a movie that is in pre-production right now somewhere in the world that was casting, and they're like, you know what? We can't find the actor that we're looking for this role. We're going to use James Dean. I think James Dean died in 1955.
Yeah.
And so I'm using quotey hands. They cast James Dean. So they're going to use his image, his likeness, his voice, all through algorithms and technology to make his voice say the things that they need him to say.
That's crazy.
So there's really dangerous implications there for an actor to protect their own likeness and their image after they're gone, so their estate gets paid correctly for it.
Think about that aspect of it. Holy cow.
And how, as computing power gets more powerful, and economical, does that jeopardize real actors? Can they motion capture everything? Can they CGI everything, and just use like one human being
to do everything?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know where we are or where we're going. I mean, I don't think so. I think people will understand that they always need real storytellers, and there's two perfect examples of that. Will Smith just did a movie called Gemini Man, where he plays two characters, plays himself at 25 and plays himself today. And the movie was panned critically. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't speak to the performances, but most of the criticism comes from the technology. And they're like, young Will Smith doesn't look right. And the newest example is The Irishman.
Right.
You know, Pacino, De Niro, and Pesci playing themselves as young men. And today,
I didn't realize that. I haven't seen it yet. Obviously, I know it just came out.
So that movie spans decades.
But they use CGI.
They use CGI to make those guys young men.
No kidding.
And so generally, you know, the movie is well received. It's on Netflix now. Right. It's genuinely well received in terms of the performances. I mean, most people are saying, "Ugh, we've already seen this. It's like The Godfather." But the criticism comes in, they're like, it just doesn't quite look right. And maybe that's because we as human beings can't suspend disbelief. We know De Niro's in his 70s.
Right.
We know Pacino's an older man, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So why not just cast a different actor to play Pacino's character at 30 years old? Our audience brain would suspend disbelief and be okay with that. We go, oh, this is his character. He becomes the older man.
I like the idea of having a different actor playing the younger role like that. I think it gives it a good perspective, a uniqueness.
I do too. I think
that's the way to go.
I don't think we need that.
Yeah.
We don't need that much CGI.
If you had a podcast, or if you had the opportunity to interview anyone that you wanted to, who would you like to do a podcast with, or who do you think would be good for this podcast?
Oh, gosh, that's really interesting. Well, from an industry perspective, I'd really like to interview Saoirse Ronan. She's an Irish actress. She's only in her mid. When I tell her the movies, you'll know who she is.
Oh, okay.
She's already got 3 Academy Award nominations. She's only 22, I think. Maybe she's 25 now. 25. Lady Bird.
Oh, okay.
Yep. She's the daughter in Lady Bird. She is Lady Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Brooklyn, the movie Brooklyn, set in the 1950s in New York. Mary, Queen of Scots. So she is. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. She is this generation's Meryl Streep.
Nice.
She is insanely talented. She's done a whole litany of movies already that are all amazing. She can't do anything wrong. The hardest thing to do is spell her name because she's got an Irish Gaelic name, which is really hard to say.
What would you ask her? What would you want to know?
Well, that's a whole different thing.
All right, not to go too deep,
because
but just out of curiosity.
I mean, her process, like why she chose the scripts that she's chosen, where she's going next, you know, what she continues to feel vulnerable about or insecure about, you know, how things like that, probably. So that would be an industry person. I think I'd really like to interview Obama. He was president at a time of a lot of change. We had the internet before Obama, but like social media really became impactful. He became president he was elected in 2008 and became president January 2009, right? That was really when Facebook ramped up and Twitter was starting.
The social media
absolutely.
Explosion more so than the internet.
I think the previous incarnation of technology was the 1960 presidential election with the first televised debate between Kennedy and Nixon. And Nixon looked old and scared, and Kennedy looked young and dynamic. Mm-hmm. And we take that to 2008, and you get the same sort of thing with Obama, with the internet and sound bites and nuggets. And, you know, it just he'd be really interesting to talk to, I think. Like, whether you like his politics or not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Right? He's just an incredibly well-spoken person. Mm-hmm. He is mindful of others. I think he's family first. There's no controversy around him. There's no like tabloid fodder around him. With people in the public eye, there so often is. And I think you have to make a conscious choice to avoid tabloid scrutiny. Denzel is a perfect example. When have you ever seen Denzel on TMZ?
That's true.
You never have. Yeah. And he's on record about this. When he was first starting out as an actor, he said he would never do a scene that disrespected his wife. So there's no sex scenes with Denzel. There's no scenes. Now, he's played some horrible characters.
Right.
But generally, there's no scenes that his wife wouldn't feel comfortable watching.
Right.
And
Like
that doesn't have to be
kids
just
wouldn't
sex
wanna
or
see kind of
kids,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a cool perspective.
That's a great
That's a
perspective.
cool. And
Well, a lot of his little sound bites of like him dealing with the media, he's so cognizant of the impact that they have and the way they skew things, and he takes them to task quite a bit.
I think so.
Doesn't cut them too much slack.
Yeah.
And I like that. He doesn't do it in a vindictive or malicious way. He's like, you just need to think about what you're doing, and everything that we do has an impact on other people, especially from a tabloid perspective.
Yes. That's very, very true.
10 years from now, what does an average, everyday day look like for Alex Collins?
I think it'll be really similar. Continuing to work as an actor, continuing to teach and coach, and send the elevator back down.
Yeah.
I think what'll happen is I will be busier as an actor. I'll probably be a series regular on a TV show at that point. So it might be in Atlanta, it might not be. But what that means is I won't be available on an ongoing basis as a teacher. So that means I'll have to find, we talked about technology a lot, find ways to be available that way. So if I'm not in Atlanta, I can interact with students. Hopefully I'll be taking more vacations. I realized, growing up, I didn't have a lot of money as a little kid, but I realized the value. I did get to travel. I had been to and lived in 3 different continents by the time I was 20.
Wow.
Europe, North America, South America. I spent some time in Argentina.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
When my time in LA, I was so broke, I had to squirrel away money. So when I had any money, I never used it because I was like, what if I need it?
Right, because you're so hand to mouth.
So
you just
hand
never
to
know
mouth.
when the next job's going to come.
So I mean, we would buy groceries at the 99-cent store. We got really excited when PBR was on sale. You could get a 6-pack for $3. I was like, yes, this is great. Yeah, I know, but it's great, right? When you're eating ramen noodles all the time, like that's like champagne,
right?
I'm starting to refine my love of traveling, and so I went to Iceland this year, and that was magical. And so now I'm thinking of other places to go, like Patagonia or Norway, or at some point I'm going to do an Australia, New Zealand trip, but that's going to be like 2 months.
You're kind of stealing my last question from me here.
Uh-oh.
So my last question is what's one item on your bucket list? It sounds like maybe international travel might be it. I don't know. But
that's not bucket list.
How about a bucket list item?
All 7 continents, for sure. Yeah,
okay.
I need to go to all 7 continents. So I've done 5. So I need to do Australia and Antarctica.
That's so funny.
Yeah, the 2 A's.
So I've got 3 guests now on my podcast that have Antarctica on their bucket list.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming more and more pressing as climate change becomes more and more prevalent. And I really became hyper cognizant of that in Iceland because
you could tell. You could see the
glaciers occupy, I think, 11% of the entire country.
Wow.
But the main glacier, Vatnajökull, I think is how you say it, is retreating 150 meters a year. So it's essentially retreating 18 inches a day. Wow. So I can stand in one spot, and a day from now, the glacier will be 1.5 feet away from me. That's how quickly it's receding. And we went on a glacier hike, and the guide, a very small business owner, he just has one truck. He does one tour a day with 5 or 6 people. He's a fisherman in the summer, and he's a glacier tour guide in the winter.
Cool.
I was like, you see it both parts of the year, don't you?
Yeah.
He's like, I can see it visibly in the winter. The glacier retreats.
Moving.
In the summer, I'm still catching as many fish as I've always caught. I just have to sail farther out into the ocean now to find them. Because the heat is changing in the water, which means the jet streams, which means the currents, which means their food source changes. So I don't know the exact time, but maybe he used to have to, drive his boat an hour that way. Now he has to drive it 2 hours to go find the fish.
Which means
more fuel, worse economic impact, right? And ultimately, maybe it's going to be 3 hours, or maybe he's never going to be able to get to the fish at some point. So there is going to be an impact for him environmentally, culturally,
There is now?
Financially, there is now. Yeah, he's doubled his fuel costs just year over year. And that's really tough.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful place. It's become a victim of its own success. It's so popular now. So many people are going there. that it's, it has an impact.
That may be the same thing with Antarctica as well.
Yeah, as the ice shelf retreats, it's getting harder and harder. I think one of the most tragic things is Everest. Now there are thousands of people going to Everest a year, and so
didn't they just change some of the laws now to try to fix some of that, or at least to try to eliminate some of the garbage?
I think they're trying to. Yeah.
They've got to figure out some way to manage it. The last few years, you see them, and it's just like they're packed and stacked. And not only is it hard on the environment, but you're also exposing people to a lot more danger when you've got them out there exposed like that.
No question. It's not to sort of bring this to a negative conclusion. Do you know what the largest source of trash is on Everest?
The oxygen tanks, I would imagine.
Human waste.
Poop?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So a Sherpa has to carry poop back down the mountain.
Yeah. Well, I know that the oxygen tanks are the ones that really bugged me.
Yeah,
at least with the poop,
you can fertilize it, you can use it,
grow some flowers up there on the side.
Absolutely.
But when you big old giant metal cylinders,
there's nothing environmentally friendly about those. It's crazy.
Well, that was kind of a weird note to end on.
2020, there's going to be a lot. Obviously, by the time this airs, Richard Jewell will already be out. But keep a lookout for these two other shows at least. Who knows? Yeah. Hopefully, there'll be more things down the pipeline. But again, I can't say anything specific. But the one show I'm talking about that is just going to be mind blowing. Everybody will be talking about.
Awesome.
Everybody will be talking about.
Once we get to that world, and once that's the okays come through and it's all in production and everything, then we can we'll talk it up on social media and all that. So on that note, we always want to give everyone a chance to plug their social media, any charities, any organizations that they're involved with, businesses. Now's your chance to throw all that out there. So I know you got a couple.
I should have written this down.
Yeah. Well, give out your social media first if you want to.
Yeah, no.
For folks that want to find you.
If any actors happen to stumble upon this and they're listening, I teach at Drama Inc. in Atlanta, so dramainc.net. And if you want to...
And you're on Facebook as well, Drama Inc.
Yep. And if you want to follow me personally, Instagram is the best place to follow me, and that's at Alex B. Collins. So you can usually find out about, what shows I'm working on or what's coming down the pipeline, where I'm at, that kind of stuff.
Or if you're like me, you can even use you as your little guide to what's happening in the world, because I don't get a lot of the, the celebrity stuff. I don't know about a lot of what's going on. But if Alex has got something cool going up, then I get to hear about it. And it was really cool that your social media was how I first got exposed to the Jewel movie coming out. And man, that one's going to be a big one.
Let's hope so.
Very exciting.
Fingers crossed. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate your time. And good luck with the future, man. 2020 is going to be huge for both of us, hopefully.
For both of us. New decade. 2020.
Onward and upward.
That's it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. So what'd you think? What did I miss? Anything that you wanted to hear that I didn't cover? What do you want to know more about? Who would you like to see on the show? Hit us up on social media and tell me what you think. Check us out on iTunes and please leave a review. We're now on Patreon, and your support there helps let us know we're headed in the right direction. We have a lot of exciting new things coming, fascinating guests, and some of the craziest stories you won't believe. So stay in the loop and check out more great content by subscribing at our website, 8keystoGreat.com. Special thanks to my guests and all those of you living an extraordinary life. This is Nate G. We'll see you next week.